So, unfortunately, I am starting this review a little bit later than anticipated because right after this match between the Timbers versus Maraton finished and I basically turned on my laptop decided that it was time to do one of those annoying updates that actually took longer than I anticipated, and it took like about 25 minutes to do so. So, therefore, when I am recording this video to take a look at these two games that happened in today's CONCACAF Champions League action, it's 30 minutes since the last CCL game of today's action between the Timbers and Maraton has concluded. Also, after this game, I still have to do a video where I'm going to be doing my prediction for the Western Conference table. I originally was going to do this right before this Atlanta versus Alajuelense game was going to start, but because of the fact that I have a lot of housekeeping to do today and I wasn't able to get it all done before this game was kicking off around 3 o'clock my time. That's the reason why I am doing the prediction of the Western Conference table right after when I finish the review. So, that being said, let us actually look at these two games. And, this was the first two games where we see the first two MLS team playing in the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16. And the good news is, both of them is able to move on into the next round of the CONCACAF Champions League, albeit both of them definitely were able to move on to the quarterfinal in different circumstances. Whereas the Timbers were able to comfortably move on into the next round and able to put a 5-star performance against Maraton. That was anything but that if you are Atlanta playing against Alajuelense. I mean, this was a very stressful game for Atlanta United, and probably surprised that it was such a stressful game for Atlanta to able to win this game against Alajuelense to move on into the quarterfinal, because not only the fact that they were coming into this game with a 1-0 aggregate score and some home field advantage, but coming into this week, we knew that Alajuelense was going to be really short-handed coming into this week because apparently we found out that up to 6 players were unable for this team due to COVID protocol, and a lot of these players wasn't able to even travel with this team to come to the U.S. and come to Atlanta, because one of the COVID protocol that prevented those players to come to there was that if you decided to go to Europe and you basically return either from the U.S. or in this case to Costa Rica before going back to the U.S., you have to self-isolate it for 15 days. So since a lot of these Alajuelense players were part of the Costa Rican national team in the last international break, a lot of international friendlies in Europe, and that a lot of them had to come back to Costa Rica to do their 15-day self-isolation period. And since the last international break was less than 15 days before this game, of course, kicks off, that's why they weren't able to complete that self-isolation period in time to be able to travel with the team to come to the U.S. to play against Atlanta United in the second leg. So, yeah, again, with that being the factor, you would think that with Atlanta playing against an Alajuelense side that was down to their B team, you would think they would easily roll them over and easily get a big victory to move on into the next round, right? Well, that was at least looked like the case in the first 10 minutes, as I thought they dominated the possession and was really dictating the game. Although after that, Alajuelense started to get back into this game, and they were started to put some dangerous crosses against this Atlanta back line. Although really for the first 25 minutes, there was no real opportunity by either team to potentially get the opening goal of this game. And then, you know how I said earlier that Atlanta kind of dominate the first 10 minutes? Well, after that, yeah, they look very sloppy in both the attack and the defense. And really, the attack up to that point looked like an attack that was a big issue for Atlanta last season and was one of the biggest reasons why they turns out to be one of the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they just could not get anything going in terms of the final third or even create any chances in the final third to score the opening goal. And then the defense, up to that point, they were having a lot of trouble in terms of trying to clear the ball out of the dangerous area and giving up way too many set pieces to Alajuelense, which one of them in the 42nd minute almost cost Atlanta the goal in this game and almost gave Alajuelense the opening goal when Cabrera had a free header from a free kick that was delivered in the box, but unfortunately was just hit wide of the mark, and Atlanta is very lucky to escape that situation, still being at 0-0 and heading into halftime with a 0-0 score. So you're thinking heading into the second half with Gabriel Hines must have fired up his team with his halftime talk. You would think this Atlanta team would look much better than what we saw in the first half, right? Yeah, no. Unfortunately, that was just not the case whatsoever. In fact, they kind of got away with a penalty just 2 minutes into the second half after it wasn't given, after it clearly looked like Bello brought down Adrian Martinez in the box. And, I said this back in the first leg where I feel like Atlanta United is got to be very fortunate that they're one of the few MLS teams in this competition that actually get the benefit of the doubt and the call that goes in favor of them, because there's just so many times we've seen in this competition when MLS team enter CCL and they always tends to have calls that goes against them, and therefore that's why we always invent the term CONCACAF, because whenever an MLS team have a call that goes against them, they basically just got CONCACAF. Well, in this two-legged affair, it seemed like Atlanta is one of those few MLS team that actually not only didn't get CONCACAF, but they actually got called that goes in favor of them, and their opponent was the one that actually is getting CONCACAF. So yeah, again, overall, this was a very fortunate break for Atlanta, and that I have no doubt that if this was something we see in MLS, there's no doubt that a lot the time that would be a penalty against Atlanta United. Now, a couple of minutes later, Vargas was able to deny Marcelino Moreno from close range. That was one of the first opportunity that Atlanta has going forward on the attack. But then 1 minute later, in the very next sequence, they came inches away from getting the opening goal as Sosa unfortunately hits the post on the header from the corner. But then on the other end, Martinez hits it just wide from close range, and all of a sudden during that sequence it was an end-to-end action between both of these teams. And if you're an Atlanta fans up to that point, I don't think they would be happy the fact that the game was end-to-end, knowing the fact that, yes, even though they were going to get some opportunity if the game was end-to-end, that also means you're giving opportunity to Alajuelense, who have a chance to potentially get the opening goal and really tie this aggregate score and set up a really nervy last 30 minutes of this game. Now, in the 61st minute, it was Atlanta turns to complain the fact that there was no penalty given after Moreno looked like he was brought down in the box. Then, in the 65th minute, Joseph Martinez was subbed off in his first start in over a year. Oh, I forgot to mention that Joseph Martinez did make the starting 11 and that he was actually the captain of this game. And yeah, I think this was the right decision for Heinze to sub off Joseph Martinez. And as much as I know Joseph Martinez was not happy to get subbed off at that point, he was pretty ineffective in this game. And that, I'm not going to worry about the fact that he has not looked like his old self in this first two games, because, he is still coming back from that torn ACL. And, since he haven't been playing over a year, it's going to take time for him to get back to the match fitness and get back to that sharpness and that Joseph Martinez kind of player we know that he could be. And if we do give him time to get back to the level he is, then there's no doubt that he's going to once again start banging goals for this team. Now, just 9 minutes later, Vargas was able to deny Hyman from close range as Atlanta looking to trying to get the opening goal. But then on the other end, Rios Novos was able to deny what looked like it was a through ball that one of the Alajuelense player was able to get. And what's very strange about this play was that when the through ball was coming into the box, one of the Alajuelense attacker was actually able to get to that through ball, and I have no idea how did he not able to just kind of get to that through ball and round Rios Novo and puts it into the empty net or even make any contact into that ball. And because of that, Rios Novos was able to come off his lines and punch that ball away from him. But what a big missed opportunity that was for Alajuelense, and what a huge sigh of relief that was for Atlanta, because that was probably one of the better opportunity that Alajuelense had to equalize, or not not equalize, but more like getting the opening goal to tie the aggregate score up. Now, for the last 10 minutes, both teams was pushing for the next goal, which fortunately for Atlanta, they were the one that got the opening goal. And it's Jurgen Damm that scored from Ezekiel Barco to give them a 1-0 lead, and that would be the final score of this game, and also the 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 goal to pretty much put this tie out of reach, with Atlanta being 2-0 in the aggregate score. But the shots in this game, 15 shots compared to 7 that Alajuelense has, 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that Alajuelense has, 5 shots off target compared to 6 that Alajuelense has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to none that Alajuelense has. And possession-wise, Atlanta dominate the possession with 67% possession compared to 33% possession that Alajuelense has in this game. So, if you're Atlanta, the good news is you're able to move on into the quarterfinal of the CONCACAF Champions League, but the bad news is this was not a great performance whatsoever, and this looked like a very 2020 Atlanta United performance. And heading into this new season, you hope that this is something that you won't see as a recurrent, because heading into this season, this was supposed to be the year that Atlanta is trying to move away from that difficult year that they had last year and look like a team that could be a competitive team in the playoffs, and also a very fun team to watch whatsoever, which was something that was not shown at all during this game. But we shall see whether or not if they can improve, and I can't wait to see in that opening weekend game against Orlando City, where I think that is going to be a really big test to this Atlanta team. Not only the fact that not only the fact that Orlando City has gone much better ever since Atlanta are trying to rebuild, but Atlanta also want to keep their title, that they are the better team in terms of that rivalry that they had with Orlando City. But moving on, in terms of the next match and the last match of today's CONCACAF Champions League game. So, as I mentioned earlier about how Atlanta had a really tough time to be able to move on into the quarterfinal, for the Timbers, they seems to have a relatively easy time and pretty much put up an amazing performance against Maraton in the second leg. Now, I will say this, in the first half, it was a very even game between both of these teams, and it wasn't until maybe the second half when Portland really put up into fifth gear and really decided to just completely took control of this game and completely blow Maraton all the way back to Honduras. The fact that they really show their dominance, and in the end able to comfortably cruise their way into the quarterfinal. Now, the starting 11 for the Timbers in this game was pretty much the same as the first leg, so that means no Sebastian Blanco and Jeremy Obowasi again for the Timbers. The first couple of minutes, I thought Maraton started out strong and they had a couple of chances to get an early goal, but instead it was the Timbers, the one that got the opening goal, and it would be Jimmy Chara that scored from Diego Valeri to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead. Little do we know that would be the beginning of what would be a historical moment we would see the Timbers do, and what Jimmy Chara would do later in this game. But then 2 minutes later, so remember back in the first leg when the Timbers scored the opening goal, and literally 2 minutes later, Castillo was able to get the equalizer to tie the game up for Maraton. Well, it was almost deja vu all over again, because in the 19th minute, Castillo had a chance on the right side, but unfortunately he hits the side netting, and the Timbers are very fortunate that one hits the side netting, because if that one was put on target and put it in, it would have been the same thing happen in the first leg, where the Timbers were able to get the opening goal only to instantly give it away just 2 minutes later. Now, 7 minutes later, Jimmy Chara did look like he scored his second goal of the game and the second goal for the Timbers, but the goal was disallowed for offside. Now, I don't like the fact that, FS1, they took a very long time to show the replay of the fact that Jimmy Chara was in an offside position and the goal was disallowed. Like, originally they show a replay where the ball was played to Diego Chara, and originally when I thought if that was called offside, then yeah, that clearly was not the right decision. But thankfully later on they show a replay when Valeri plays the ball to Jimmy Chara, and Jimmy Chara was clearly in an offside position. But the fact that it took like 4 to 5 minutes for us to find out is kind of frustrating to see that of course is the case. And in some way I know people is going to blame FS1 for this, but I also kind of blame in terms of whoever is in charge of this game in terms of the world feed and the CONCACAF feed, of them just not doing a good job in terms of showing the replay. And just quickly explain to us why in the world that goal was this allowed in the first place on the replay, and we kind of had to wait to see whether or not if that is the right call or not. Now, up to that point, I thought the game was very even, and it was a very end-to-end game with both teams have a chance to get the next goal. Then in the third minute, Torres absolutely robbed Felipe Mora, who basically hit a good shot from close range, and somehow Torres with some cat-like reflexes to able to deny Felipe Mora at that point. Torres is a guy that, if you remember back in the first leg, he was able to make a couple of big saves in the first leg to basically keep a couple of Timbers players a chance to score a goal and maybe give the Timbers even more than the 2 goals that they scored in the first leg. But unfortunately, 2 minutes later, he wasn't able to keep out what would be the second goal of the game for the Timbers, and also the second goal of the game for Jimmy Chara, as he scored from Darren Asprilla and Felipe Mora. And I gotta say, for Darren Asprilla, I don't know, during the pregame, did somebody told him that this was like a playoff game or something like that? Because if he was told that of course is the case, that pretty much explained why he had such an amazing performance. Like, this was peak Darren Asprilla kind of October playoff kind of type of performance where he was just really running the show and just creating chances for players, and also making some good runs on the attacking end. And yeah, I mean, somebody must have told him that this was a huge playoff game, because there's no way in the world I would usually see Darren Asprilla playing this well early into the season. And I gotta say that there's no way we also would see that this is the case when it's not actually October. Now, as we head to halftime, it looked like maybe the Timbers were going to get the 2-0 lead heading into halftime. Literally on the very last play of the first half, Zuberic was able to clear an Arriaga shot off the line, and this was actually a huge mistake that Steve Clark actually made, where when the ball was coming in, I thought Steve Clark could just easily catch this one, and I'm not quite sure, did he maybe misjudge the flight of the ball, or maybe he basically when he jumped up to the ball to try to catch it and it pretty much slipped out his finger. Actually, when I did see the replay, it looks like it was kind of the latter, where when he did jump up, the ball kind of slipped out his finger, because of that, it basically got the ball right to Arriaga, who was just wide open in the back post, and it looked like it was going to be a tap in that he was going to be scored. But fortunately, Zuberic was there at the right place and the right time to just clear that one off the line, and that was a huge moment in this game, because if that goal would have went in, it would have been 2-1 in favor of the Timbers, and the second half probably wouldn't be as what we saw, would later find out the Timbers just completely dominate, and it would be a very nervy kind of moment. And also, after this play, when the halftime whistle was blown, Steve Clark immediately went into the locker room. Now, I don't understand why exactly he decided to do that. Like, I understand that was a bad moment for him, and that he's trying to jog off to the locker room because he doesn't want the fans to kind of let him know about that. But in many ways, you're still going to have the manager's going to tell you that, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that, and you're going to hear kind of criticism for him. But also, I feel like what Steve Clark should have done is that instead of just rush into the locker room, he should at least thank Zuberic there, because if it wasn't for Zuberic being in the right place in the right time to clear that one away, it would have been 2-1 in favor of the Timbers, and Maraton would have been right back in this game. Now, in the second half, as I mentioned, the Timbers just completely took over and really pretty much put it into fifth gear and just blow Maraton out of the building. And it all started 2 minutes in when Valeri tried to do a cheeky chip over the goalkeeper, but just missed high, before Jimmy Chara had his first opportunity to get his hattie when he curls one that was just wide off the goal, before Darren Asprilla in the 60th minute. And up to that point, I mentioned how Darren Asprilla was having a great game. Well, unfortunately, he basically had an empty net to shoot during this moment, but unfortunately, he just shot this one right to Teixeira, who was on the line and able to clear that one off the line. I mean, that was a good defensive play from Teixeira, But for Darren Espria, you have to score that goal. And I guess this pretty much just say that even though as good as Darren Espria was in this game, and as good as he probably was reminded that someone reminded him that this is a big playoff game, at the end of the day, the hard truth is Darren Espria cannot score a goal unless this is October. Like he's not allowed to score a goal unless if it's October, and last time I checked, we're still in April right now. Now, Jimmy Chara 4 minutes later had a free header, but just missed wide, as again that was his second attempt to trying to get the hat trick. But fortunately, the Timbers would eventually get that much needed third goal when Diego Valeri would score from Jose Van Raken to make it 3-0 in favor of the Timbers. I've been very impressed in Van Raken doing his first 2 games with the Timbers, and I think if he can continue to play like this could on course be one of the best signing of this offseason, and definitely worth every penny that the Timbers were able to get from him from Liga MX. Then in the 71st minute, Larea basically had a Darren Espria moment when he basically missed a sitter from the right side and also had an empty net to shoot. Then Torres was able to deny Jimmy Chara, who had his third attempt to try to get a hattie, and you just kind of realize that Jimmy Chara, he was trying so hard to get that hat trick and trying to chase history, which eventually all that hard work that he had would paid off, because just 4 minutes later he would make history by scoring a hat trick in this game. And not only he make history of him scoring his first career hat trick ever, but he would also become the second ever player to score a hat trick with the Portland Timbers. Now, originally I was going to put he was the first ever he was the first ever Timbers player to ever score a hat trick during the MLS era that the Timbers in. But then on the broadcast with John Strong and Stu Holding kind of mentioned that the Timbers actually had scored a hat trick before in all competition, and this was back in 2013 when they were playing in the opening round of the U.S. Open Cup, and that I don't actually know how to pronounce this guy's last name, but there was a guy by the name of Federico who scored a hat trick for the Timbers during that game, and in fact he actually scored 4 goals during that game where the Timber went on to win 5-1. So yeah, it was actually surely official that, you know, Jimmy Chara didn't actually score the first ever hat trick the Timbers had in all competition, but still, you know, it's something that the Timbers, you know, when you look at this team, it's just so mind-boggling, the fact that this is only their second ever hat trick in all competition in club history, and they still have yet to score a hat trick in MLS play. Like, you know, this obviously is not going to count toward their quest of finally seeing a player to ever score their first ever hat trick. But something tells me that if this, of course, does happen, and since, you know, we know heading into 2021, I feel like maybe there's going to be some crazy things that's going to happen. Maybe that curse of the Timbers not able to score a hat trick in MLS is going to finally come to an end. But still, this is still a very special show moment with such a rare kind of when seeing this team able to score a hat trick, even if it's not in MLS play. Now, the Timbers at that point, you know, were up 4-0, and they would eventually make it 5-0 when Marvin Larea, who I mentioned earlier that he had that shocking miss and kind of had a Darren Espria moment. Well, he would make up for that when he scored in the 89th minute to make it 5-0, and then literally 20 seconds later, the referee blows the full-time whistle, knowing the fact that, yeah, this game is out of reach. There's no point of me adding more minutes. And that, of course, would be the case as the Timbers, an absolute amazing 5-star performance against Maraton by winning 5-0. Shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 10 that Maraton has, 10 shots on goal compared to 2 that Maraton has, 8 shots off target compared to 5 that Maraton has, 1 shot that was blocked compared to 3 that Maraton has, and possession, 64% possession compared to 36% possession. And somewhere in Vancouver, or in this case in Utah, those Whitecaps players are probably very nervous about their game against the Timbers on Saturday, because the way that the Timbers were able to attack in this game, and I know it was against Maraton and they were not a good defense. There was a lot of times where they did not do a good job in terms of their their defense. But still, this team, when you look at their attack, it looked like they're already in mid-season form, and that, yeah, you know, if they can continue to do so throughout the year, this is definitely a team that could actually do not only do very well in MLS, but they could really challenge in the next round against Club America, or at least I'm thinking that most likely that is going to be the opponent that they're going to be facing, and if they can of course take out Olympia in their round of 16 matchup. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of both of these games. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of both of these games. Remember, tomorrow we got 2 more CCL game involving 2 MLS team. We got Toronto playing against Lyon, and then the Union playing against Saprissa. And let's see if both of those teams can join Atlanta and Portland, being this MLS team, to reach to the quarterfinal. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.